Timmy Finch is a husband, a father, a cyclist, and oh, by the way, he's an attorney and a part of the iconic The Have-Nots and has been for the past 24 years. I sit down exclusively with Timmy for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Timothy Finch.
Hello, sir.
Welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You are a man that needs no introduction.
So we'll just skip to the good stuff.
Good stuff. But obviously, you are a respected lawyer in town. You're an icon when it comes to have-nots, and obviously, you're a family man. And I know you are an avid cyclist around Charleston as well.
All true.
Yes, sir.
At least I hope so.
You got me laughing at 10 in the morning. And I know that something else is true is the big news around town that everyone's celebrating about. The money for the Ashley River pedestrian bike.
Unbelievable. Just last night, and I got a message yesterday about that. Right around 3 o'clock. And it was before going to the Charleston Moves Pedal and Panache.
Right.
A fundraiser for them. And so we made an already celebratory event. Really just unbelievable. The energy in the room is great. So yeah, it's a great thing for Charleston. It's everybody who visits, everybody lives here. It's a plus for everybody.
Everybody. Matter of fact, you talk about Charleston Moves, Katie's Moves. Katie Zimmerman says this quote: "This is going to be fundamentally changing how we move around this area."
Absolutely. I live downtown.
Right.
My son likes to go to Waffle House, right? Yeah, who doesn't? He likes to go there on Sundays, and we spend that time. And I'm not a huge fan of driving, especially at a distance like that. But we always have to drive it. And so now, the first thing we all talked about is like, I know we'll ride our bikes or walk to the Waffle House. And so it's those simple things, but it's also people who could live way out in West Ashley, deal with all that traffic, could make their way down the Greenway, which is an incredibly nice ride, and then hook up with this and be downtown, then hook up to the rest of the East Coast Greenway or around, essentially all the way around the peninsula. That loop that it takes them, or hit the interior roads and make their commute the final bit of their commute. So it's great for everybody. I think people who never will use it, but will use or is still in their cars coming into or out of downtown, once they see the cars that are taken off. Like you won't see the cars taken off, but once you realize the cars are taken out of the system as far as commuting, then they will know it without maybe being conscious that the bridge is making the difference, right? Because a lot of people think you need to see a stream of people on bikes and cars at all times. However, there's plenty of times where it looks like no one's using it, but the people go in pulses of people. And you see the Ravenel Bridge. I've never on the Ravenel when there's somebody who's not walking and or biking. It doesn't matter any time of day, any weather. There's always somebody on that bridge. So this is a much shorter distance. I think it's going to get a lot of use.
A lot of use.
Yeah.
And Dr. Hsu, the College of Charleston's new president, basically said, "I was proud to write a letter of support on behalf of this project. I'm glad that the Department of Transportation has invested in improving the quality of life for the Metro Charleston area." You touched on it a little bit. What will be the quality of life when this bridge is built?
I think right away you'll have people being more active, slowing down a little bit, and not slowing down in how long it's going to take them to get somewhere, but using essentially what might be considered a slower mode of transportation, a bicycle or walking, and utilizing that bridge to use those other modes for those shorter trips. And once you start doing that, okay, there's people who need to get from West Ashley to downtown or vice versa for less things, dental appointments, shopping maybe at Earth Fair or any of the other shops that are in South Windermere, or people who work downtown who live in West Ashley, as far out as you want to think in West Ashley. But once you start replacing those shorter trips, 1 mile, 2 mile, right? Then you start to realize how possible it is. And you start to make more active choices. I mean, choices to be active. Leaving the car at home, maybe investing in an electric bicycle. Some people say, well, it's a really far way for me to ride a bike, but I still want to go. Well, there's plenty of new model electric or electric assist bicycles that take away the effort you need to put in. They just augment your own natural effort, and so you could be using that and cruising at a good pace without putting out a huge amount of effort. But you can also dial it back so that if you do want to put in a lot of effort, you don't have to use as much of the power assist. I think people, once you realize all those things, then you get out of your car. Getting out of your car does a lot to change your sedentary lifestyle. You want to get out and be more active. It's just sort of that good feeling engenders more good feeling. And I think when more people are doing that, they'll get friends to do it, friends and family. Say, look, why don't we walk there instead? Why don't we ride a bike instead? So I think it would be good for everybody. I think that's just one quality of life item. And once you start doing that, you start seeing your city a little bit differently. Right? Your city looks very different from behind a windshield than it does out in the open. Whether you're riding a bike, whether you're walking, however you're getting there. And it's interesting. I say this a lot, but when people go on vacation, people live in Charleston, they go on vacation, one of the first things they do, they rent a bike and they get out because they want to see where they are.
Sure.
This will let people do that more often at home. Get out and see more of Charleston, which I think is just going to be great for everybody.
Great for everybody. Obviously, you are a cyclist, as I mentioned. How do you view Charleston now from your bicycle seat?
As far as a cycling city, or what's my experience? And it's got a long way to go. But it's easy to visualize the changes that can happen. For instance, when I ride down the street, and this is not just because of my thoughts, it's exposure to other people out there who are making these changes in their cities, or have historically looking at other places that have our kind of density, and I mean that road density, and made some changes, right? And some of them are just simple. For instance, when I look at a street, I think, what if we eliminated that row of parking on that side? Okay. Right now, when you're in downtown Charleston, many times you have to stop and move over because there's two cars don't fit down the street at the same time.
Right.
And that's because we've got on-street parking. We're essentially storing people's private property in our public realm. Kids, when I grew up, kids would play in the street. Second Sunday, where people get to roam the street, is extremely popular, even when the weather's not great. People are out down there because you want that feeling of community. You want to be out. So making changes to the roads, simple stuff. And one of my favorite ones to talk about is if you took King Street, right? Take King Street south of Calhoun. You have 2 lanes of travel there, but almost never can 2 cars be side by side because of the size of the vehicles now. SUVs are gigantic. So I've thought, why not eliminate one travel lane? Okay, take the parking. If you want to keep the parking, move it inbound, right? So closer to the center of the road, and then use that leftover space, that's 6 feet or so, to create a protected bike lane. Right? People could be up and down, or if you have enough, you could do what's a 2-directional bike lane, so people could go both directions. Cars are just going in one direction, and the parked cars, which were kind of a nuisance before, like I said, restoring private property and public space. However, that becomes a useful barrier between travel cars and people on bikes, right? And so it's essentially a protected bike lane. So that's the way I see it. I constantly am looking at streets and how can we change it? What can be better? How can this be safer? So that's, and sometimes I'm just sort of, if I'm out for a longer ride, it's not every second that's like that. There's a lot of sort of Zen meditation, if you will, where I'm just enjoying the work and the ride. So it's not always, what can we do to change? But that happens a lot downtown, especially in short trips.
Short trips. Let me stay downtown and move over to your love, the have-not.
Sure.
You're coming up on 24 years.
Yeah.
What is the biggest difference between 24 years ago and right now?
We were a lot more physically active on stage, and I mean, we still do a physical show, but and I think back to shows I did when I was 25, 26, or 26. Yeah, that was, the body took some injury. Now I'm not. I can use more. I use more of the brain. I don't need to. But you know what? The reality is, the chemistry among the three of us is. I don't want to say the same as that it's been stagnant, but it was so. It is so good. It always has been so good. It was almost right from the very beginning. We just gelled. We just became this unit that is very much better when it is all three of us than any of the component parts. It's that Gestalt theory. The sum is greater. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? So 1 + 1 + 1 does not equal 3. It equals like 5 or 7. And when we're really on it. I don't have. It's hard to imagine having more fun doing anything else than when we have a really good show.
Good show.
Yeah.
What show describes you as an entertainer?
What show?
Yes, sir.
You mean like a different show than what I do? Or
over the past 24 years, what show still plays in your mind to this day?
Oh, we've done so many. But it's a good. I appreciate the question. It's good. There were a couple that are. I think maybe it's not even the content of the show, because with the improv, what happens is you do the performance and almost it's just gone from your. It doesn't stay in. Some things stay in your memory, obviously. But it's the nature of the art form is it's just in the present. Everything is present. But some things really stand out. We did a great show. There was a series of shows when I remember Ed Charleston had the First Night Festival,
right?
And we would do these shows at the Garden Theater, which is now Urban Outfitters,
right?
But it was such such history in that theater, and those shows there was a lot of things that just made them really cool. Doing a show with a symphony was an incredible feeling. That was at the Satilli Theater, the biggest, I think probably the biggest venue we've done. On a negative side, we did a show in the Coliseum, but it wasn't for 10,000 people. It was part of this back to school festival or something. This did not go well. The acoustics and the staging was not. But you know what? All the shows we did at the original Theater 99, the shows we do now at Theater 99, plenty of festival shows. There's lots of different memories that pop up, and one of the magical things is when we do get, when we get together to do shows, which is, every month or sometimes more frequently, or when we're just talking, Greg, Brandy, myself.
Yes.
You just bring up those memories, and you just somebody has going to remember some snippet that will then charge the memory for you. So the relationship is it's beautiful, is what it is. It's great. Yeah.
The art scene in Charleston.
Yep.
What is the state of that right now in your mind?
I think it's rich. It's vibrant. I'm very happy to see Pure Theater with their new space. Theater space in general is fragile. We had one Theater 99. We lost the lease on that, obviously, and then it was we were in residence, if you will, at the American Theater. Very kind of those folks to put us up, but until we found our own theater. So people finding theater space, being able to use theater space. I know at Theater 9 the classes are full. Teen classes, adult classes. The visual arts. Redux has got a beautiful space up there. Wall Street Playhouse. All the different Footlight Players still thriving, still going. Dock Streets are still.
Right.
There's something for everybody. Music is always happening. Spoleto is as vibrant as it's ever been. It's great. I think it's really well. I'd like to see. Great to see maybe a different theater festival. We have the comedy festival, and we have Spoleto. It'd be interesting to see maybe a different theater festival. I haven't. It's not like I've even talked to anybody about it, or maybe people are already talking about it. I don't know, but maybe something in the fall. We still have. There's Y'all Fest for literature, for youth literature. There's just so much good stuff. I think it's great, but I think there's always room for more. The arts. They're just going to enrich your city. And Charleston's rich, but it could be richer in that sense. And I look forward to seeing it.
Look forward to seeing it. And then here comes bike law.
Yep.
How do you make that move from have-nots to this?
That wasn't. It wasn't necessarily, straight linear. But as I started being a lawyer, theater and the law, especially litigation, have a lot in common. You're telling a story. And you are telling a story in a way that you want your audience. Sometimes it's a jury, sometimes it's a judge, sometimes it's an insurance adjuster. You want to be able to tell that your story, which is really your client's story, in a way that's going to help them get the best result. But it was one of those things, having done, at that time, I'd done theater for 10 years. We toured a whole lot. The physical theater was sort of, we had just gotten a second theater, but that kind of losing the theater and being not in residence at your own place, it made me think of just lots of other things. Like you just look forward to in your life. What's next? Is there anything else I'd also like to do or else like to try? And I got a lot of feedback from folks, loved ones, said, we always think you'd be a good lawyer to give it a whirl. So, I applied and went to law school, and I had a great time. I learned a great time. And those people, I think it sounds crazy, but I loved law school. It was great. I had great friends in law school, great experience, great instructors. I got to stay right here in town at Charleston School of Law. And, after that, I went to work at the solicitor's office, and it was a great experience there as well. Felt like I was doing good work, important work, and along that path, I'd met Peter, who's the founder of Bike Law, and Peter Wilborn, and he and I stayed in touch throughout. And I, being a cyclist, somebody joined law school, so we got to meet Peter. He does Bike Law, and so we would. Just throughout the time I was even at the solicitor's office, just stayed in touch, just with no real plans, just staying in touch. And eventually it got to the point where with his practice and the bike law was expanding so much, he needed to bring somebody on. And so I came on board in 2014, September. So just 5 years, a little over 5 years now. And it's been great. I get to combine several passions.
Sure.
I get to help, folks that I can really identify with as cyclists. And I can really help to tell their stories because that's what I do, right? I can explain to somebody who doesn't understand why a cyclist may be in this position on the road or doing that because I've done it, I've lived it. So that was the impetus for, or not really the impetus for the jump. It's kind of the story, but it's been great. I love helping cyclists. And, being a lawyer is not all Perry Mason moments. There's a lot of there can be a lot of, it's a lot of time on the computer, a lot of time on the phone, it's a lot of time that isn't, but it's absolutely fulfilling and rewarding all across the board. So,
Across the board. This might be a silly question, but in bike law, is there a difference between, say, a bike crash and a bicycle accident?
Well, you know what? The terminology is different, obviously, and the terminology is important, right? We say bike crash because an accident implies that there was just no way to avoid this, right? Oh, it's just one of those things that's an accident. I think, a great way to think of an accident was, usually it's like what little kids do, right? And spinning around in the living room, they knock over your glass of water or something around that. They didn't mean to do it. They're just not really thinking that far ahead, right? Toddlers don't do that. Usually, and the reason we say crash is because almost always there's something that could have been avoided, right? Usually it's distracted driving. By that I mean somebody staring at their phone instead of looking at the road ahead of them, being aware of their surroundings. Or they're speeding. or drunk driving. Lots of things, lots of choices that are made that had they not been made, we wouldn't have had a crash. You know, so it's the difference is really it's what we're talking about is the terminology, and a bike crash is how we always how I always refer it. It's how when I write about it. If it's a letter to somebody, it's bike crash. It's never almost never an accident. I've I could conjure up some fact pattern where there's some accident, but by and large, the ones we deal with, there's always something that could have been avoided. So,
Yeah. What is something about cycling and the bike law that you didn't know? Well, you know now that you didn't know before.
No, it's a tough one. Well, I mean, obviously in the law, you're always learning, so there could be myriad different things. But as far as I before you really dig in and get involved with, because bike law itself is a network. Okay, bike law is a network of attorneys and member firms throughout North America, Canada, and the United States. And it has two different heads, essentially. One is the legal, right, the work that the lawyers are doing representing clients. And that can be, again, that is a huge spectrum. And then there's the other part, which is the Bike Law Foundation, that has outreach and ambassadors that work as advocates, right, in their local jurisdictions, like their cities or towns, maybe on the state level. So the one thing you don't realize when you're just riding your bike, right? When I was just riding my bike for fun, 20 years ago, before I was a lawyer, I really wasn't aware of how you get some idea. Wasn't the depth and richness of some people's hostility towards cyclists and towards biking in general. When you really dig into it as more from the advocacy perspective, or when you're representing clients and you realize that there's some biases you have to get over, maybe for a jury or for, again, maybe an insurance adjuster just doesn't understand, or defense attorney, why is this person on the bike? Why would you make that choice? Or isn't that inherently dangerous? Should you not be doing it? That even in this day and age, where as much information is out there,
Sure.
that we still bump into those things. So that's kind of I can put that in the column of, gee, something I didn't expect that it would be. But those are turning. I think, our most recent elections here for the city council, you see a younger, some younger folks being replacing some older ideas. We still don't know who our mayor is going to be, but I think as far as the runoff goes, both gentlemen are bike advocates in the sense that they want to see that happen. So, that's changing in Charleston, and I think it's going to continue to change. I hope that more people do get on bikes and have safe ways to get everywhere they go. Infrastructure is super important to keeping people safe, and I would like to see the city, again, getting back to where we even started, building off that new piece that is due to, who knows exactly when it'll be built, but it's going to be built soon. But building off of that to find the next phases. Charleston Moose does a great job by identifying what's the next step, right? Because you just can't get across the Ashley there. You still have to get across, the Wapu Cut.
Sure.
You still have to get the North Bridge. It has to be addressed.
Okay.
There's people getting between West Ashley and North Charleston. So there's a lot of places that we still need to address safety. But I'm encouraged by what's happening, by the support I saw last night at the Charleston News event, by the awarding of the grant, by the elected officials, and I'm heartened that Charleston is going to continue to look like it's going to grow and be a different place and a better place because of all those things.
Let me talk to you about your future.
Yep.
What do you hope to cycle into next?
Well, I like what I'm doing now. The funny thing is, and this is just, we can just put this down as a silly kind of dream, but why not share it, right? And it cracks my son up. He is soon to be a teenager, so I'm hoping that we stay allies for those years. But you know, I really am interested in community. For a very long time, I was sort of, and I do, you know, I will spend a good amount of time alone, but I'm very interested in community. I'm very interested in hearing what other people have to say and hearing their viewpoints, not necessarily agreeing with them or seeking out as like an echo chamber to agree, but just the interaction with neighbors.
Sure.
So in my fantasy world, I open up like a corner store. And that maybe like a cafe type thing. That's it. I have no experience doing that. It's not really a real plan. But when I could see myself, maybe in retirement, having this little corner store where the neighbors come in and they buy their soup and their I always think that would be kind of cool because I see all these old Charleston corner stores,
Right.
and I think, and some of them are holding on to that corner store vibe, and some of them aren't, but I don't know, it's kind of cool. But like I said, I like what I'm doing now. I want to continue to grow as an attorney. I want to continue to represent clients. I want to continue performing. I love doing that. So I'm not looking to shed anything that I already have. But yeah, I don't know. Next thing, you never know. I mean, you never know what's gonna, I know I want to stay in Charleston. I really, every so often Charleston will make me crazy, like anybody, right? But when we were touring, in the early days of the Have-Nots, we toured a lot, and we would go everywhere. You'd be in New York City, you'd be in Washington D.C., Philadelphia, Boston, Portland, Maine, Denver, Toronto, Detroit, all kinds of cities, and little tiny towns, beautiful places.
Right.
And couldn't wait to get back to Charleston. Just couldn't wait to get back to Charleston. When's our next break on this tour? Let's get home. And sometimes we drive 15 hours to get home to spend 48 hours at home and then drive straight back. But that was, I moved here in 95. I planned on being here for 1 year. You see how that turned out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Timmy Finch, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups. And thanks for all the laughs over all the years.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
All right.
Yeah, you're welcome.